طيب الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Excuse me, I'll just move around so you don't get bored and I don't get bored as well. Okay, we just talked about how the Muslims generally, the general state of the Muslim Ummah with regards to the world and with regards to its history. We said that this Ummah, mashallah, really had a wonderful and powerful future. The brothers at the front, if you feel more comfortable going a bit to the back, I think it would be more comfortable for you. This is why I'm just saying, so we expand the circle a bit. So you feel more comfortable, inshallah I feel more comfortable as well. Basically the Muslims definitely are living in a dilemma, but the solution is definitely there. And the problem is not with the science that we have, with the knowledge about Islam that we have. The problem is really deciphering this knowledge, understanding it well, and then putting it into practice. So we live our lives by Islam. Many times we can theorize, we can lecture to non-Muslims for hours about Islam, that Islam will bring you happiness, Islam will bring you balance, Islam will make you strong, Islam will, set everything right in your life. But if we reflect our own reality, we don't see this happening. We don't see it happening. So, where did this gap come from? Why can we, theorize about Islam and speak about the beauty of Islam, and that can bring you that tranquility and that sought after state of happiness, balance, and personal strength? And when we look at our state, we don't find it. Even the very ones who preach this proposition. And by the way, this is one of the main reasons that the media is successful in depicting the wrong image about Islam. Don't think that it's only their efforts that have really made us vulnerable, that have created the image about Islam that we are weak, or we have this dangerous proclivity to evil, to aggressiveness. The Muslims are savages, Muslims can't think properly, things like that. Now, it's not their efforts to spread this image that have really been successful, but we have given them, we have perpetuated this image, we have added to this dilemma and made it even worse, because people don't see our reality as we seem to preach it. That we have the secrets to life, to a tranquil life in this world and the next. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim repeats this statement after him. He says, anyone who thinks that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam only to set matters right for the hereafter, then he is mistaken. He is mistaken. Allah sent the Prophet ﷺ to set matters right in this world and in the next. This is what Islam was sent for. So anyone who thinks that we have to be the weakest, we have to be the most backward, we have to be the poorest in this world in order to make it to paradise, that you cannot make it to paradise without that, then he is mistaken. And we quoted the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he said to Amr ibn al-As, نِعْمَ الْمَالُ الصَّالِحِ لِلرَّجُلِ الصَّالِحِ. نِعْمَ الْمَالُ الصَّالِحِ لِلرَّجُلِ الصَّالِحِ. And we said all of these things that we have in this world are assets. Assets given to us. Anything in this world, look at anything in this world, even sins. Even sins. Originally they are designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what? To help us make it to paradise. Even shaitan is created. Now the question comes up by some Orientalists and unfortunately by some Muslims. They don't have the answers, so they start to question their own belief. What is the wisdom behind creating shaitan? Imam al-Qayyim gives a huge number of reasons why, what are the wisdoms behind creating shaitan? And ultimately you realize how great the mercy of Allah, how great the wisdom of Allah is for creating Adam. It's just our short-sightedness, we don't realize what we have. Wallahi, Islam has the potential to put everything in a state of harmony and flow, that you can actually find an explanation, a logical, well-established explanation for anything that happens in this world, even if it's the most evil thing, most despicable thing on earth. That's the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Actually, the early scholars of the Muslims believed in this. They strongly believed in this, and this is why they maintained the meaning of the verse, وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. And Allah created you and everything you do. Now the Mu'tazila, one of the deviant sects that is almost non-existent today, apart from some of their ideas. They came up with the philosophical argument that it's impossible that Allah creates evil, because that means He intends to do evil. That's the short-sightedness. See, that's the problem of using logic, which is in reality not logic. It is IQ. It is analytical faculty. But the problem with our intelligence, our analytical abilities, and our memory, if it's not placed in the right spot, it gives an adverse effect. It's just like the very famous example given, that if someone is very good at cutting trees, sawing trees, cutting them down, even if he's very efficient, very fast, very quick, it doesn't have any positive effects if he's in the wrong forest. And the other parable, or the other analogy is that make sure before you climb the ladder, which is a very tedious activity, that it's leaning against the right wall. That's exactly the same thing. You can be logical, but you have placed yourselves in your place or your thoughts in the wrong position, so they give adverse effects. That was the case of Al-Mu'tazila. So Al-Mu'tazila used to think, or used to say, that evil happens, or people do sins, without the permission of Allah, and without the creation of Allah. They create their own actions, which is obviously wrong. So one day, in the house of the Khalifa, there was Abu Ishaq al-Isfarayini, one of the great scholars of the Ahlul Sunnah. He was sitting there in the gathering, and the Mu'tazili is so envious of Abu Ishaq al-Isfarayini. He hates him so much, and he wants to set him up. So the Mu'tazili had a cup in his hand, and it fell. So he said, Subhana man tanazzaha anil fahsha. Allah is so high, He is far from evil. What do they mean by this statement? They mean that Allah does not create evil, we make it ourselves, we create it. Now Abu Ishaq al-Isfarayini, very intelligent, he knows these people inside out. So the first man said, Subhana man tanazzaha anil fahsha. He replied, Subhana man la yakunu fi mulkihi illa ma yasha. How high exalted He is, Allah. In His dominion, nothing happens without His permission. Now the man, the envy came out, surfaced out. He said, أَوَيَشَاءُ رَبُّنَا أَن يُعْصَى? Does Allah permit that He has been, people disobey Him? He replied with a calm composure. He said to him, Abu Ishaq al-Isfarayini, he said, أَوَيُعْصَى رَبُّنَا قَهْرًا? The other man said, أَوَيَشَاءُ رَبُّنَا أَن يُعْصَى? Does Allah wish that, or permit that people disobey Him? He said, أَوَيُعْصَى رَبُّنَا قَهْرًا? Okay, do you think that Allah is, or people disobey Allah against His own will? So he could not answer. This kind of composure and this kind of understanding, even at a very critical moment, very difficult moment, he did not lose his wits, he did not lose his temper. That's a sign of what we call faith-based intelligence. He was really intelligent, and he knew how to handle the situation. The other person was out of control, and he lost. Now the thing is, in the state in which the Muslims live, this shows that there is a weakness in terms of understanding our Iman and implementing it. We can talk about it, we can theorize about it. Now the question is, what are the symptoms that make us ask these questions, the previous questions, about what does Islam have to offer Muslims at this time and this age? How can we benefit? How can we make good use of the Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in order to deal with all the dilemmas we're facing today? That's the questions. Now, obviously the weakness in which the Ummah lives in all aspects. When a nation is weak, this weakness permeates all aspects of its existence. And that's known for a fact. Muslims are financially weak, even though they have the richest countries and lands in terms of resources, natural resources. They have economies, rich economies, and they have petrol, they have whatever you want, you can name it. But still the Muslims are not able to use it. We have financial weakness, intellectual weakness. In a study conducted on the level of education, the first 500 universities all around the world in terms of academic achievement, none of them includes there's only one Muslim university, and that's it. Arab universities are far behind that. Only one university in one Muslim land came within the first 500. Most of them are at the end of the lists, at the bottom of the list. That's education. In terms of health, same thing. Even in terms of how we handle, the non-Muslims, they don't have any real assets when it comes to the things that I talked about, like the generally emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence and all of this, even the self-help literature. They don't have any real assets, but out of nothing, they brought something tangible that brings about some results. Now we Muslims have something far greater, far better, and we are unable to tap into the potential Allah has put in Islam. We're unable to reach that. We are unable to manifest that. So the state of weakness in which we live, we feel it, everyone feels it. This is why many Muslims feel frustrated. So what happens? The question is very natural and logical. What does Islam have to offer us? How can we get that beauty out of Islam and exercise it and enjoy its fruits in this world and in the next? And by the way, success in this world is not separate from success in the next. Unless we're trapped with the Western concept of success. Even if you are financially successful, intellectually successful, educationally successful, that doesn't mean success in the Islamic perspective. It's a small part of success. It's a small part of success. The other reason that really pushes us to ask these questions is secularism. And this is what I call individual secularism. Now, even when you talk about, or when you mix, unfortunately, with many students of knowledge, and by the way, I just have to make this disclaimer, that I'm not here undermining the state of the scholars or the students of knowledge. These are the inheritors of the Prophet ﷺ. But as I said, if weakness takes over an ummah, it permeates all its aspects and almost all of its individuals. There are only very few exceptions. Many people from among the students of knowledge, and unfortunately some scholars, some people who are versed in knowledge, you can hear the most beautiful speech when they talk about Islam, when they talk about manners, when they talk about fiqh, when they talk about all these issues. But if you deal with them, if you spend some time with them, you'll find a totally different kind of approach, different kind of conduct. Why? This is what I believe could be called individual secularism. Now we Muslims talk about akhlaq, we talk about manners, we talk about, and many of the Muslim movements who complained about the state of the Muslim ummah, the state of the governments, and the state of the general masses of the Muslims, when they had the opportunity of some control, they had some power, what did they do? They were a new dimension of tyrannical government. And you can see this in their own followers. So why do we preach something? Why do we study something and believe in something, but our conduct is totally different? There's a real problem. Obviously, this has to do with our understanding of faith, our understanding of belief. Once we understand, and inshallah this is what we will be doing the next couple of days, when we understand faith, we'll start to see how faith is not static. Islamic faith is dynamic. And in human life, faith is at the bottom, is at the root of every human activity. Thought, action, emotion, faith everything can be traced back to faith, to what you believe in. So if we were to use the computer analogy, we could say that faith is the basic software of human life. And this is, by the way, something very well known. And if you want, those who read in self-help, and I don't advise people to get so much into self-help, because self-help is a religion. It's a deen. And all of them are based on one principle. One principle. If you understand it, you understand all the self-help literature, all of it. But they just give it in they offer it in different formats, package it in different ways in order to market it. It's just for marketing.